The race session is at Watkins Glen in Watkins Glen, USA. James Pendry is P1. Kevin Woodward is P2. Ted Hoff is P3. Walter Phillips is 4th. Vernon Whitley is P5. Gavin Kapuscinski is 6th. Jack Abel is 7th. Gordon Jacobson is 8th. Jen Markoff is 9th. James Pendry is 1st.
Boogity, boogity, boogity! Let's go racing, boys!
Ted Hoff is 2nd. Ted Hoff passed James Pendry for 1st. James Pendry in turn 3, Esses is 2nd. Ted Hoff in inner loop is 2nd. Ted Hoff passed James Pendry for P1. Vernon Whitley in turn 5, outer loop is P5. Gavin Kapuscinski in turn 5, outer loop is 9th. Gavin Kapuscinski passed Jen Markoff for 8th. James Pendry is P2. Jack Abel in turn 8, heel is P6. James Pendry is 2nd. Jack Abel in turn 1, the 90 on lap 2 is 6th, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is P2, 0.5 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel in inner loop is P6, 0.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is P2, 0.5 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel in turn 7, toe is 6th, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is P2, 0.7 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel in turn 11 is 6th, 0.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in turn 4, Esses is P2, 0.4 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel is 6th, 0.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is P2, 2.4 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel in turn 8, Heel is P6, 0.8 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in turn 1, the 90 is 2nd, 2.2 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel is 6th. James Pendry in turn 5, outer loop is P2, 2.6 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel in turn 6, Laces is P6, 0.7 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is P2. Jack Abel is 6th, 0.9 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is P2, 1.7 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel is P6. James Pendry in turn 8, heel is second. Jack Abel is 6th, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in turn 1, the 90 is P2, 1.2 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel in turn 11 is P6, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is P2, 1.4 behind Ted Hoff. Jack Abel in turn 5, outer loop is P6, 0.7 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in turn 10 is P2, 1.3 behind Ted Hoff. Gordon Jacobson in turn 8, heel is P6, 0.1 behind Jack Abel. Gordon Jacobson passed Jack Abel for P5. Jack Abel is P6, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. Walter Phillips in turn 11 is 7th, 0.5 behind Jack Abel. Jack Abel in turn 1, the 90 is P6, 0.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. Walter Phillips in inner loop on lap 7 is P7, 0.6 behind Jack Abel. Jack Abel is 6th. Walter Phillips is P7. Jack Abel is 6th, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. Walter Phillips in turn 9 is P7, 0.4 behind Jack Abel. Jack Abel in turn 11 is P7, 0.1 behind Walter Phillips. Walter Phillips in turn 2, Esses is P6, 0.4 ahead of Jack Abel. Jack Abel is P7, 0.3 behind Walter Phillips. Jack Abel passed Walter Phillips for P6. Jack Abel lost 6th to Walter Phillips. Walter Phillips in turn 6, Laces is 6th, 1.1 ahead of Jack Abel. James Pendry in turn 1, the 90 is P2, 1.5 behind Ted Hoff. Walter Phillips in turn 10 is 6th, 1.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in turn 6, Laces is P2, 2.0 behind Ted Hoff. Walter Phillips in inner loop is P6, 1.3 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is P2, 2.7 behind Ted Hoff. Walter Phillips on lap 9 is 6th, 0.2 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry is 2nd, 2.6 behind Ted Hoff. Walter Phillips is P6, 0.3 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in turn 7, Toe is 2nd, 3.2 behind Ted Hoff. Walter Phillips in inner loop is P6, 0.3 behind Gordon Jacobson. James Pendry in turn 11 is P2, 3.4 behind Ted Hoff. Gordon Jacobson in turn 8, heel is P6, 0.9 behind Walter Phillips. Walter Phillips was 119.6 faster last lap. James Pendry in turn 5, outer loop is P2, 3.6 behind Ted Hoff. Gordon Jacobson in turn 2, Esses is P6, 1.5 behind Walter Phillips. James Pendry is second, 2.8 behind Ted Hoff. The leader has just finished the race. Ted Hoff finished P1. James Pendry finished second. Kevin Woodward finished third. Vernon Whitley is P4. Vernon Whitley finished P4. Jen Markov finished P9. Walter Phillips finished P5. Gordon Jacobson finished 6th. Gavin Kapuscinski finished 7th. Jack Abel finished P8. race session is at Watkins Glen in Watkins Glen, USA. Jen Markov is P1. Jack Abel is P2. Gavin Kapuscinski is 3rd. Gordon Jacobson is P4. Walter Phillips is 5th. Vernon Whitley is 6th. Kevin Woodward is 7th. James Pendry is 8th. Ted Hoff is P9. Jen Markov is P1.
Boogity, boogity, boogity! Let's go racing, boys!
Jen Markov is now P6. Gavin Kapuscinski is P3. Kevin Woodward is 6th. Ted Hoff is 9th. Jen Markov in turn 5, outer loop is 8th. Jen Markov lost 8th to Ted Hoff. Gavin Kapuscinski in turn 7, toe is 2nd. Gavin Kapuscinski lost P2 to Gordon Jacobson. Kevin Woodward in turn 8, heel is P6. Ted Hoff is 8th, 1.1 behind James Pendry. Kevin Woodward in turn 3, Esses is 6th. Ted Hoff in turn 5, outer loop is 8th, 1.0 behind James Pendry. Kevin Woodward in turn 6, laces is P6, 0.2 behind Vernon Whitley. Vernon Whitley is P6 battling Kevin Woodward. Vernon Whitley passed Kevin Woodward for 5th. Kevin Woodward is P6, 0.1 ahead of James Pendry. Kevin Woodward lost 6th to James Pendry. Kevin Woodward lost 7th to Ted Hoff. Gavin Kapuscinski in turn 11 is 3rd, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. Vernon Whitley is P6, 0.1 ahead of Ted Hoff. Kevin Woodward in turn 2, Esses is P8, 0.5 behind Ted Hoff. Gavin Kapuscinski in inner loop is P3, 0.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. Gavin Kapuscinski is now 6th. Vernon Whitley in turn 5, outer loop is 5th battling Ted Hoff. Vernon Whitley lost 5th to James Pendry. Walter Phillips is P3, 1.3 behind Gordon Jacobson. Vernon Whitley in turn 9 is P6, 1.5 behind James Pendry. Walter Phillips in turn 1, the 90 is P3, 1.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. Vernon Whitley in turn 4, Esses is 6th, 0.9 behind James Pendry. Gavin Kapuscinski exiting pits. Ted Hoff in turn 6, Laces is P4, 0.6 behind Walter Phillips. Walter Phillips on lap 4 is P3, 0.3 ahead of Ted Hoff. Walter Phillips lost P3 to Ted Hoff. Ted Hoff is 3rd, 0.1 behind Gordon Jacobson. Ted Hoff passed Gordon Jacobson for P2. Walter Phillips is P4. Jen Markov on lap 4 is 9, 2.2 behind Gavin Kapuscinski. Jen Markov passed Gavin Kapuscinski for P8. Walter Phillips is P4. Kevin Woodward is 7th, 0.2 behind Vernon Whitley. Walter Phillips in turn 7, toe is P4, 0.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. Vernon Whitley in turn 7, toe is 7th, 0.2 behind Kevin Woodward. James Pendry is P4, 1.5 ahead of Walter Phillips. Kevin Woodward in turn 11 is 7th battling Vernon Whitley. Kevin Woodward passed Vernon Whitley for P6. Vernon Whitley in turn 1, the 90 is 7th, 0.3 behind Kevin Woodward. James Pendry is 4th, 0.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. Vernon Whitley in inner loop is 7th, 0.4 behind Kevin Woodward. Ted Hoff in turn 8, heel is P2, 0.6 behind Jack Abel. Jack Abel is P2. Kevin Woodward in turn 9 is 7th, 0.1 behind Vernon Whitley. Walter Phillips is P5, 0.4 behind Gordon Jacobson. Kevin Woodward is 7th, 0.3 behind Vernon Whitley. Walter Phillips in inner loop is P5, 0.5 behind Gordon Jacobson. Vernon Whitley in turn 5, outer loop is 7th, 1.1 behind Kevin Woodward. Gavin Kapuscinski entering the pits is 8th. The leader has just finished the race. Gavin Kapuscinski finished P8. Jen Markov is 9th. Jen Markov finished 9th. Ted Hoff finished P1. Jack Abel finished 2nd. James Pendry finished P3. Gordon Jacobson finished P4. Walter Phillips finished P5. Kevin Woodward finished P6. Vernon Whitley finished 7th. Walter Phillips finished 5th. Gordon Jacobson finished P4. James Pendry finished 3rd. Walter Phillips finished 5th. James Pendry finished P3. Gordon Jacobson finished P4. Ted Hoff finished 1st. Walter Phillips finished P5. Jack Abel finished 2nd. Vernon Whitley finished 7th. Walter Phillips finished P5. Gordon Jacobson finished P4. Walter Phillips finished P5. Kevin Woodward finished 6th. Jen Markov finished 9th. Kevin Woodward finished 6th. Vernon Whitley finished 7th. Ted Hoff finished P1.